been covering the protests. I've been covering the government overreach. I've been covering the slow crawl from blatantly tyrannical countries like China and Russia towards the more Western nations like France and the United Kingdom. The green pass or jab passport phenomenon is here. And remember, I made the episode called The Mask, the Jab, the App. And what we were talking about back then in like May of 2020 was the reality of what the rollout was going to look like. And the one thing that I knew had been holding things off here in the United States was the fact that these jabs were under emergency use authorization. And I knew that they were going to have a harder time getting those off emergency use authorization than what they were projecting. And that was just from being somebody who was mining through the data. The Biden administration's position has been that the emergency use authorization would be lifted sometime in September or November. The DOJ just announced a policy letter today, and let me specify, that is not the Supreme Court. That is not law. It's a legal document, but it's essentially the prosecution's argument for punishing somebody. So the defense hasn't weighed in yet. This is just the prosecuting attorney's policy letter justifying, get this now, justifying that government agencies and private institutions can legally force people to get jabs that are still under emergency use authorization. Now, this has been applicable to the military for years, but never has this been done to civilians. Not only that, but the DOJ is empowering private companies now, to do this. Whether Section 564 of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act prohibits entities from requiring the use of a vaccine subject to an emergency use authorization. You guys, this document, it's 18 pages long, it's annoying, it's obnoxious, but just all you need to know is that what they're saying right here, that's exactly what they're justifying. So what does that tell us? It tells us they're having a little bit harder of a time getting these things off of emergency use authorization than what they had previously encountered. We knew that. We knew they were going to have a hard time getting this off emergency use authorization because there's bureaucratic milestones that these dang jabs have to meet, and they're not meeting them. I can't talk about the reactions, I can't talk about the numbers, but just go to VAERS and look yourself and know that there are other legal documents that have been submitted, lawsuits for instance, submitted making claims that many more people have had adverse reactions than what we're seeing on the VAERS network. Look into the 45,000. That's all I can say. Just Google it and find it in relation to Pokes, the 45,000. You'll find it. But I just want you to read the last paragraph with me because it's all you need to read, really, honestly, to know what's coming. And we know what's coming, guys. For the reasons set forth above, we conclude that Section 564 of the FDCA does not prohibit public or private entities from imposing vaccine requirements, even when the only vaccines available are those authorized under the EUAs. Number one, this is wrong. Number two, it's a lie. Number three, they know it. But they know they're going to be able to push this on people while it's challenged. Because now it has to be challenged. Now somebody has to challenge this. Somebody has to take it to a court, which it hasn't even been to a court yet. They're going to use this to force people to take experimental jabs, and it's not even been to a court yet. This is just the opinion of the prosecuting attorney. It hasn't been defended. The idea that they could not get the EUAs closed off fast enough, they couldn't get emergency use authorization put away and get the jabs permanently approved, they couldn't do that by September, October, November. And they see that now. So this is the DOJ maneuvering to ahead of time make it legal for people to be forced to take things that are still rated as experimental by the FDA. It was already a questionable enough behavior to do to people in the military. It's still questionable to force soldiers to do this. But just random citizens? Under what right can you force regular citizens to inject themselves with an experimental vaccine. I put a comment underneath my last video. It happened in China, but it won't happen here. It happened in Russia, but it won't happen here. It happened in Singapore, but it won't happen here. All the way down to France. And now we're seeing that the government, our government, is making preparations to be able to legally force people to take experimental vaccines. It's a problem. Enough people aren't aware of what's coming here. They don't think it's possible. Even when they see the DOJ making it legal. I just wanted to bring this, guys, to you real quick. I love y'all.
Your pardon?
Will you require all federal employees to get vaccinated?
That's under consideration right now, but if you're not vaccinated, you're not nearly as smart as I thought you were. But if you're not vaccinated, you're not nearly as smart as I thought you were. We have a pandemic because of the unvaccinated, and there's so much enormous confusion. And then only one thing we know for sure. If those other 100 million people got vaccinated, we'd be in a very different world. So get vaccinated. If you haven't, you're not nearly as smart as I said you were. Thanks.